Good morning, everyone. I'm Bill Roebuck. I'm the Executive Vice President at the Arab Gulf States Institute. I want to welcome you to our program today, Yemen at a Crossroads, Navigating Political Shifts and Economic Turmoil. We're delighted to bring together 5 extremely talented analysts from the region to tackle the tough issues confronting Yemen: fragmented political power, stalled negotiations, and a distracted, divided international community. Yemen's population has also endured over a decade of conflict and deep economic instability. With no clear roadmap for a political settlement or a solution to the country's deepening economic collapse, the need for clear-eyed assessment of Yemen's challenges has never been more pressing. So let me introduce the members of our panel and move forward with today's program. I will note that 2 of our speakers, thank you both, are joining us on screen by Zoom. Badr Alqahtani is Senior Editor for Gulf Affairs at Asharq Al-Awsat and has led the newspaper's editorial coverage of Yemen for nearly a decade. Badr has conducted high-level interviews and produced in-depth analyses of the Yemen conflict and its regional implications. Emad Bamtraf is the Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy of the Republic of Yemen here in Washington. A career diplomat, Emad was posted in Turkey as a political and cultural officer and has served in sensitive positions in the office of the Foreign Minister and the office of the Prime Minister. Jeehan Abdul Ghaffar serves as the Senior Advisor to the Executive Director at the World Bank Group, representing countries in the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia. Previously, she served as the deputy head of the United Kingdom's Department for International Development in Yemen, and she holds a PhD in conflict resolution. Mansour Rageh serves as the deputy governor of the Central Bank of Yemen, where he oversees banking, supervision, and policy development. He represents the central bank internationally as a member of the Digital Financial Services Working Group at the Alliance for Financial Inclusion. Our moderator is Hamzah Alkmali. Hamzah is a visiting fellow with us here at the Arab Gulf States Institute, and he is a Humphrey Fellow at the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs at Syracuse University. He currently serves as Yemen's Deputy Minister of Youth and Sports, where he has led national initiatives in policy design, strategic planning, and international cooperation. Full bios of our panelists are available on our website. So our event today is on the record. It is being recorded and it will be available in a few days on the website. This is Hamzah's last day with us as a visiting fellow. We're putting him to work right up until the last minute. So, Hamzah, thank you for all your contributions over the last several months. Any final words from you on your experience here at AGSIW? That's certainly welcome before you take up your duties moderating today's panel. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you so much for the invite. It has been my pleasure working with you guys and to interact with a great team of experts, scholars, and people who believes in the mission to expand the understanding of countries that nobody understands about them. I think this center serves the global interest of how the Gulf can interact with the United States, with the world, and how would we understand each other, bridging the gap between the ideas that people and helping improving people's life through understanding and designing better policies. I think the way they welcome me, the way they have me, and the way they share the idea that Yemen is a part of the Gulf and you cannot go to the Gulf without having a stand in Yemen. And I think this is a great vision and a great message that's sent to all the Yemenis who think at some point that nobody cares about them. There are some people who want Yemen to be on the agenda and who want to take care of the people of Yemen. So thank you so much. Well, starting, Yemen has been in a conflict since more than a decade, and Yemen has been suffering from this conflict since the Houthis have taken over the capital Sana'a, destroying the political track that has been Yemeni worked since 2011 until 2014. Yemen has been an area of interest for the United States since the first ties between the both countries, but as you have seen, the shift in the policies, has changed over the past 3 months. Yemen has been at the top of the agenda of the United States since the big air campaign that was launched by the President Trump. And then accidentally, when this was all stopped by the unexpected ceasefire between the United States and the Houthis. I don't want to go to more details. I think my guest speakers will be the one who give us more ideas about that, who will speak more about that. And for that, I have to start with my friend Emad, Mr. Emad, who will start speaking about how did he describe this shift in the United States policy, how do the Yemeni government observe that, and how they interact with that, and how do they see this as like different policies, but from President Biden to President Trump, and how do they observe the United States policy in Yemen?
Thank you, Hamzah. Thank you, William. And I would like to give my appreciation to this institute for bringing Yemen to the front and to bring all these talented people to discuss Yemen and share the ideas and analysis. And starting from what you said, Hamzah, actually, it's not just 3 months. We have seen this shift in policies in the past 2 years, but it became more visible in the past 5 months. So it's a very dramatic situation in Yemen. We have seen ups and downs, but let's go to the very basics. What the government was not able to convince the world for the past 10 years, the Houthis managed to convince them in less than 2 years. The terrorist nature of this group, we have been talking about their aggression against the Yemeni people, the atrocities they commit against the Yemenis. And to a great extent, the world was more focused on the humanitarian aspect of the conflict, but they never looked directly to the threat they posed to the region and to the world. And when the Houthis started their attacks on the maritime routes, everybody woke up to this very terrorist nature of this group. I will talk first about the dynamics inside Yemen. We have seen, you said, major shifts in policies, but let's go to the very basic. How is the situation inside Yemen? And inside Yemen, the dynamics did not change much. The Houthis did not achieve like a big victory inside Yemen. All their campaigns have been defeated in different fronts. And still, they are in the same positions they started with 2 years ago, before October 2023. The shift has been in the regional and international arena. But internally, the Houthis are weaker. The society is against, the dissent among the society against the Houthis is increasing. Their grip, their iron fist on the population is weakened. We see from time, and this is why they jump to. They try to export their crisis and engage into external conflicts. And militarily, with the air campaign, the U.S. air campaign, they have suffered a lot, major losses. But the main issue here, the time over and over given, the chances over and over given to the Houthis, and is not used or utilized to build peace or to bring the country into stability. Rather, it is a chance for them always. It has been a chance for them to rebuild themselves, to increase their capabilities, and renew the threat they exercised in the region and the world. So it's a very challenging situation. On the other side, Yemen is suffering from very acute economic situation. It's an active war. We have been talking about de-escalation inside Yemen, but that is not really true. We have seen the military de-escalation, but it moved to the economic zone. So we have seen an economic warfare, and this has crippled the country. The attacks on oil exports and inability of the country to export oil has brought the economy to its knees. The people are suffering. This is the scene. And when you ask me about how do we see the US, the major shifts in US policies, actually, let's talk about how can we handle that. Now, we have seen the US making a ceasefire with the Houthis, and it was clear from the very beginning of this administration, they made limited goals, limited objectives, and they decide, and they are not into making major wars. But the relationship with the US is strategic for us in Yemen. So the ceasefire was sudden, it was challenging, it brought frustration internally because people for the first time felt there is a chance to weaken the Houthis and make them again accept peace in the country. But that has been, with the ceasefire, so much frustration has been there internally. But how to make use of that? There are tools. We are working with the US to use, like the FTO, the interdictions against Houthis, weapons shipments, and all of these. The only thing is that the situation is volatile and fragile, and nobody knows what will happen next. We are back to the same position internally, no major shifts in the balance of power, but the economic situation is so dire that it might drive the whole country in again renewal of the conflict.
Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing this a very important thing. You said like the changes were regional and international. There was no much change in Yemen. That will drive me to go to our next speaker, Mr. Badr Alqahtani, who is engaged in understanding the regional interventions in Yemen. And I would say, because Saudi Arabia is the main player in Yemen. It's the most important country when it comes to Yemen, international and domestic politics and everything. We're speaking about economy, speaking about whenever even we speak about population, there is connections, ties between both people. I need to understand what is the Saudi original stance on Yemen during the last, I would say, not 2 months, let's say since the beginning of the Houthi scope in the government.
Thank you so much, Hamzah. Thank you, William. Thank you, AGSI, for hosting me and to offer this platform to Yemen and 30 million Yemeni. I think you would be very shy to say it is a forgotten crisis that is always not in the priorities of most of the global agenda. I don't know how to start to talk about the Saudi position in Yemen, because it has been always the same. It has been always prioritized Yemen peace, because I don't think there is any interest of Saudi Arabia to have a conflict neighbor while it is improving and booming in terms of economical wise, in terms of its own social reforms. But I would like to start from the global and regional context, because we can see the bigger picture. I think Riyadh is playing a role as a platform for peace between East and West. This peace platform extends to allies such as the US, Ukraine, right after hosting talks between rival powers like the US and Russia. Middle Eastern conflicts take up a large portion of Riyadh diplomacy. I guess let's just say Palestine, Israel, Yemen, Sudan, Syria, Libya, Lebanon, etc. Despite these ongoing challenges, Saudi, I think, has not paused its efforts to reshape its vision to, or in light of regional dynamic. It has supported de-escalation steps such as the Al-Ula agreement between GCC countries, strengthen economical based relations, and later signed multi-strong agreement with Iraq. One notable milestone was the normalization of relations with Iran following Chinese mediation. I think these efforts reflect a broader Saudi approach to diplomacy, one that prioritize regional stability, economics, cooperation, and shared interest as the foundation of the international relation. As for Yemen, Saudi Arabia remains committed, I guess, to its security and unity. And I will stop reading and say that uh, I don't think Saudi will even thrive without supporting peace in Yemen, because from what we all hear as journalists, from the Saudi politicians, Saudi businessmen, by the way, some Saudi ministers who are not related directly to politics or foreign ministry, they all are waiting to Yemeni solution that will ease the last peace in the whole area. I think the base of the most of Saudi discourse, meetings, summits, press releases, it's all using the reference of the Saudi initiative to Yemen. We saw the following efforts with the UN track, which is the roadmap, 2013, 7th of October happened. Later on, November, attack to the ships happened. And there were like one obstacle from Houthis, one obstacle, I think, from the United States, because they didn't see that Houthis can enjoy any political process without with this type of attacks in the Red Sea. So just a few days ago, I was in an interview with a very strong Yemeni presenter, and he was asking me, could Yemen buy, or could Saudi Arabia buy the conflict of Yemen? And I was asking him, and in a very funny way, I was saying, for how much? And I don't think it's going to happen, because it's going to be very easy if it was for sale, or any conflict would be in any stock market of conflicts. But that's not going to happen. And I can just simplify the Saudi diplomacy to Yemen and the region in one word: constructive, because we have so many examples that prove that, in terms of the 250 plus development projects, microeconomical support for these projects, and it's all for development. We see the humanitarian, and Saudi did well with it. I think it approaches $27 billion in total. But it's not about the project, it's about the quality of that project. It's not a super like humanitarian and that's it. No, it eases the government's job to develop above this type of project. So just in conclusion, I guess Saudi, or the 19 plus countries who are friends of Yemen, the US, I think everybody cannot bring peace to Yemen if Yemenis didn't decide to have this peace. And I know I can't lecture Yemenis in terms of diversity or accepting the others, because in every political negotiations, and maybe Dr. Hamzah was in one of them in Stockholm, we see politicians, they shake hands, they do shisha together, they can speak, but the 30 million Yemenis, who I think 70% of them are living in villages, they don't gain anything out of this, but no water, no electricity, no salaries. In the winter it's cold. When it's getting summer, they don't enjoy the summer. It's very hot, and they deserve to end this one. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Badr, for this intervention. So, as you said, like it was clear that the Saudi Arabia wants a zero conflicts policy. They are moving transformation, and they think that Yemen is the only thing that hinder this transformation and going to the future. But when you mentioned the economic situation, I am happy that today we are among the, I will say, the few people who start to speak about economy in Yemen. Everybody thinks that Yemen is only conflict and war, but economy is a part of that. And for that, I think Dr. Jeehan will help us understand more. But what are the economic challenges and what are the problems that international interventions are facing in Yemen, and how does reflect on the and the situation on the ground.
Thank you, Hamzah, and thank you, Ambassador Rageh, for inviting me and for keeping Yemen on the agenda. Just one comment before I start. I'm here in my personal capacity, so
Yes.
I'm not speaking on behalf of the World Bank. Just building on what Badr concluded with, it's the economy is about the people, and this whole war, the main victims are the people of Yemen. If we look at the economy as a whole, the GDP, of course, has plunged, and I have numbers here, but I will just give you a very short note of how it's actually affecting the people of Yemen. So Yemen went from being the 40th poorest country to becoming the 3rd poorest country in the world, as per, of course, their GDP. Yemen has among the highest malnutrition rates among women and children in the world. We have 2.7 million children are actually acutely malnourished. In terms of the health system, it's totally collapsing. The life expectancy of Yemenis dropped almost 5 years since the start of the war. It went from 67 years to 63 years, approximately. And then if we look at the life of the Yemenis going forward, if we speak about the future, and the future is always built on our human capital, and we're facing a crisis there. There is a generational impact from the current war. We have education crisis. We have a child out of 4 school-age children are out of school. According to the Human Capital Index, actually, a child born in Yemen today will only be 37% as productive as they could be with full health and education. We're also having our youth mortality is almost doubling since the starting of the war. It's the highest in the region. So looking at just giving you a hint of the war, the impact of the war is not only about what's happening now in Yemen, but how is it going to shape the future of Yemen? How is it going to shape also the region? A stable Yemen is a stable region. And this, if it's not being addressed, will have a long-term impact. Of course, in terms of the services and how the Yemenis are accessing their services. We've seen the current, women protest in Yemeni cities, and it's all about services, about paying salaries. These are the things that affect the people directly. It also erodes the public trust in their institutional legitimacy and national cohesion in general. Of course, we have institutional fragmentation. We have there is a central bank in Sana'a under the Houthis, and then there is the central bank in the IRG areas. There is this, which really actually resulted in both monetary duplication of monetary and fiscal policies in the country. And it weakened the overall Yemen public institutions. When there's no salaries, it's very difficult for teachers, for doctors, to go and actually do their work. But it actually also resulted in brain drain, as many of those institutions and ministry lost their capacities, and increase, of course, inequalities and vulnerabilities in the whole country. But also we have the private sector, and the private sector has been impacted severely with this. Despite the resilience, there have been impacted with, of course, the impact on the overall infrastructure in the country, in terms of the services that are not provided in the way that, normal situations, whether in the judiciary, customs, and others. And Emad mentioned earlier about the inability of the government to export oil. There was also the decrease in the revenues in terms of customs. So this all created this economic crisis where the government was not able to continue paying salaries or maintain the services that's required. But there's also a bigger question here. It's about what will all this cause in terms of the fragility trap? Will Yemen continue to be in this fragility trap because of, if it's not been all the underlying issues are not being resolved? And as I mentioned earlier by my previous speakers, that without political settlement, this will continue happening, and there will not be a very clear path for the Yemeni people. And I'm speaking about the Yemeni people here. And in terms of how donors are reacting to this, there has been, of course, support from Saudi Arabia, from the Gulf countries. Unfortunately, we saw a reduction in the U.S. The U.S. was the second largest, bilateral providing bilateral support to Yemen, and that was dropped, unfortunately. So with all of this, Yemen is in a very bad situation economically. There is a fragility trap that we need to get Yemen out of it. And there are a lot of missed opportunities for recovery currently. And it's not only for Yemen. There is regional growth that Yemen should be part of it, that Yemen is missing from it. I saw the other day a map of flights in the region, and I saw Yemen's skies are empty. That tells me a lot about the impact of that on the economy. This is not only isolation of Yemen, but it's an economic isolation too. So at the end of the day, it's what is it for the Yemeni people? And they are the history will judge us, all of us, based on how about all those children, were they able to have the life that we all inspire to have for our own kids?
Thank you so much for this clear picture that you have viewed all of us about the situation when it comes to economy, to humanitarian situation, of course, and how this will lead to impact not only today, it might be irrecoverable in the future. But let me move to Mr. Mansour. Mansour, you've been working in the Yemen banking sector with the central bank, not from today, not from yesterday. You've been working for at least 20 years. You've been involved in the banking system, in the institutions, economic transformation during I would say 2006, 7, 8. What can you tell me about what are the things that had happened to the banking sector, what is the challenges that central bank is facing right now, and how do you overcome those things?
Thank you, Hamzah. Thank you for everyone to give me this chance to talk with you. I will start with some indicators, additional what Ms. Jihad is saying. Yemen is highly depend on the import, especially the food. Yemen imports maybe more than 85% from the food. And also, after the Houthi took over the capital Sana'a and the war started, and also private sector suffering, and also government cannot export fuel. The main resource for the foreign currency now is become the remittances. Most of the people, especially in the Houthi territorial areas, they are dependent on the remittances. With more high unemployment and there is no jobs, private sector is also fired part of their employees. Only the remittances still continue. The banking system in Yemen is suffering also from the war. Since 2014, most of the banks, they cut their relation, correspondent banks, they cut their relation with the Yemeni banks, especially the banks, the correspondent banks for dollars. Only maybe a few banks in the region that continue working as a correspondent bank for the dollars, or maybe 2 banks in the Europe. With FTO, the situation become more difficult for the Yemeni banks, especially the Houthis controlling the capital, and most of the bank used to their headquarters in Sana'a. Almost maybe only two banks there headquartered in Aden. They used to be. With FTO and with the Houthis controlling these banks, the banks become, in difficult situations. What central bank tried to do with our partners in the region and also with including with the treasury is how we can get banks out of the Houthi influence. Maybe if you was following the situation last year when the central bank issued a decree for the banks to move to Aden. At that time, we had clear indicators that there will be more difficulties for the bank if they are continuing working from the Houthis control areas. The aim of the moving from the capital is how we get the bank out of the Houthi influence. Since 2014, Houthi is putting a lot of obstacles, a lot of challenge for the banks. Started with seizing their positions account with the banks, and until they issue a law for a legally law, which means they kill the banking system, because most of the banks they depend on the interest they get from the treasury bills or they get from the loans. That means Houthis is import a new regime. It's more conservative, more radical than Iran itself. After FTO, as I said, central bank work with our partners, including treasury, how we get the banks out of the Houthi control areas. The aim issues that to keep the banks continue serve Yemenis everywhere, including the Yemenis in the Houthi areas. The sanction was not for Yemen. The sanction is for Houthis, and how we can cut any influence from the Houthi in the banks and cut the Houthi access to the international system. We agree, and we put with our partner 8 requirements for the bank to get or to pay to protect the banks from any sanctions. This requirement, one of these requirements, that they should to move their headquarters from Sana'a to the government area, that we are making sure there is no any influence from the for the Houthi on the banks. And also how the banks will implement any sanctions issues from the government of Yemen or from Security Council or United Nations, also from OFAC and others, other partners in the region. How the banks implement international standards in the AML CFT. All these issues, it's written, and we discuss it with the banks. Also, we discuss it with our partner in the region, with Treasury. Now, most of the banks, they moved their headquarters. Banks, correspondent banks in the region depend on the certificate that issued from the central banks. Central bank issue a certificate for the banks. It is semi-annual certificate. That means in each 6 months, central bank will go and inspect and do supervise again, and to make sure this bank is following the and strengthening their MLCFT and implement the sanctions issues from the locally or international. Most of the banks, they move their headquarters to Aden, and they keep their correspondent bank, their relation with the correspondent banks, that which will help all Yemeni to import, including food. Also to facilitate the remittances inflow to whole Yemen. As I said, the sanction is targeting Houthi, not Yemenis. That means if the banks get out of the Houthi influence and their branches continue working in the Houthi territorial areas, the remittances continue flow smoothly, and there will be, for the branches in the Houthi areas, there will be a third party monitoring who monitor all the transactions in the Houthi areas.
So you allow me with this small follow-up question, Mansour. So what is the main goal of the listing of the Houthis, of the FTO? Is it like money laundering, or what exactly is the goal?
Yeah, it's the main issues for the. I mean, is to cut the Houthi from international system, to use it for doing money laundering or to finance the Houthi war against Yemen or against the what's happening in the Red Sea and the region. The main issue for FTO is to dry the Houthi resource. Now, FTO, the banking system is a part of the FTO. There is other issues, other parts from the FTO, including import fuel and not paying customs and tax for the Houthi. There is a OFAC issue, a general license, including food and medicine and other agricultural products. But for the other goods, the businessmen and the importers are not allowed to pay tax and customs. Only the goods that are listed in the general license. Then the main issue, I'll answer your questions, is to cut the Houthi from the international financial system and to not allow Houthi to use Yemeni banking to do any activities that will harm Yemeni financial system and also be used for illegal activities like importing weapons and drones and all these issues.
Thank you, Mansour, for this clear view about the banking system, the impact of the Houthi scope and the impact of the FTO, and how does the bank, I would say, survive with these storms. And I would try to move again to the political part of the discussion, and I will ask Mr. Emad a very simple question. Is peace feasible in Yemen? Can we have peace? We've been hearing about the roadmap and the Saudi negotiation directly with the Houthis, and that the government was at some point isolated. They had no clue about that. We need to know what is going on. Is there, because 2 months ago, a month ago, we were having discussion there will be a military intervention and there will be ground operation in Yemen, but now we are hearing about the roadmap again. Is there a roadmap? But tell me more about it.
Well, I mean, I remember back in 2023, we were about, the discussions over the roadmap and the possibility that it will be signed and the political process will start soon was very feasible, and it was about to start in November. But the Houthis started the maritime attacks and everything changed afterward. You cannot put the Yemeni file in freezing the Yemeni file and get it back from where it stopped. So many changes happened. But so at this moment, after the US air campaign against the Houthis and then the ceasefire as declared, there is so much uncertainty. Everybody is expecting that we are going back to the political process, but nothing is, something concrete so far has not been materialized or declared, at least. So if we talk about if peace is feasible in Yemen, sure, peace is feasible of Yemen, but peace does have objective conditions. It does not come like all of a sudden and happen just in vacuum. There should be some conditions met to make this peace happening. And what kind of peace? And the approach that everybody was pushing for in the past, like peace, any kind of peace, is very catastrophic for Yemen because it will bring the conflict in a higher scale, and will be it would be like the war of all against everybody. But so like Badr talked about, Jeehan mentioned it. It's what we need is a peace for the people, something that the people will directly benefit from. This is the only way to safeguard any peace process, is to make the people feel that it is the main beneficiary of this peace, not the Houthis, for sure. So how this, the main issue, how this peace would be materialized. Before we go to peace and sharing, power sharing, or sharing the resources, we have to think about what kind of peace the Yemenis need. We need a state. We need conditions that prevent everybody from going back to conflict. And in order to build that peace, a sustainable peace, we need the state institutions. Let's work with what we have. It's a very distorted situation. It's not a normal situation. but we cannot lose what we have. I mean, waiting for what will come later. So first thing we need to is, strengthen what we have, all these strength points that we have. One of the strength points that we have fragile but yet alive and active state institutions. And we need to strengthen these state institutions. I mentioned that before here in this institute, that we need to keep the DNA of state institutions. We need to, make it alive. The responsible actors in Yemen, encourage them. And this is one of them is the central bank. The central bank needs to be strengthened. We need to rely on these institutions for any peace process, because state institutions is the plate which will receive any peace talks. The results of peace talks will come to state institutions to implement. So we need, first step, we need to establish, maintain the strength and the basis that we have. And the second thing that we need to think about is, a state for everybody. This war is not about like geography, it's about coexistence. And the Houthis have depleted this concept in their areas. They like to be dominant. They would, all what they do, never been to any peace talks and offered concessions. And this is very challenging. At the end of the day, the Yemeni people fought for their freedom. And we need to, to make sure that everybody is on board. The coexistence, the social fabric is restored. And this is also in government-controlled areas. We do have lots of challenges. But it's all political challenges. With the Houthis, it's ideological. So we need to make sure that it's a peace process, that no dominance is exercised in it, and everybody on board. And the main issue, it's the peace for the people, how to make the main beneficiary of this peace, Yemeni people.
I need to follow up on that, honestly. Like, away from the Houthis part of the story. Is the government unified? We have heard that there are fights every now and then, and who's controlling the government? Seriously, like, this is the question of the people. And I'm trying to isolate myself, being very, I would say, independent of that.
Look, the fiasco you have in the government is very expected. This is the result of 10 years of war. It's not something that is, and this is the Yemeni society, and it is represented. And as long as one party is using weapons and violence to make political gains, everybody will restore to the same approach. So it's not united over some areas, but they are united on some areas. We have to build on that. They are united on stopping the Houthis and against the Houthis. This is one point. The PLC is is the structure that contains all these actors. Many people criticize the PLC for inability to take large and big decisions, but it's quite difficult when you have many agendas. But the main achievement for the PLC is that so far, for the past 2 years, we have not seen major crisis and major conflict in government-controlled areas, which used to happen every 3 or 4 months. I worked at the Prime Ministry for quite some time, for 6 years, and we left Aden for 4 or 5 times because of the conflict. Inside government-controlled areas, or because of the conflicts. Now, for the past 2 or 3 years, we have seen, political crisis, economic crisis, but that did not lead everybody to use weapons against each other. That's a basis to build on. We need to strengthen the government. So many things the government has to do, but the main issue, we need to maintain this government functioning, all the support, and bail out the government. As Jeehan mentioned earlier, the economic situation is very dire. The government with its resources cannot make it happen. It's not a miracle. It's economy. So the support that is given by our brothers in Saudi Arabia and Emirates, it's the right time to increase that support in order to maintain this government, this state institutions as a basis for peace.
Great, thank you so much. But you pointed that the main threat is the Houthi. You can as government, you can deal with any division problems, and I will transfer this to Badr. Do you think that Saudi Arabia can be safe with Houthis still there? Do you think, because you're speaking about transformation, 2030, like $1 trillion of investment, and you were very optimistic about peace, and you think that it could be, do you think this is feasible? Like, can be this applicable with the Houthis now?
Well, I think I'm more realistic than optimistic because since 2016, if we just look at the map of Yemen, the peace is not there, and the war even, and the map didn't change since 2016, and we're talking about almost 9 years. So everybody, I think, knows that military solution is not working, including Houthis. In terms of the Saudi security, we should always remember that Saudi received over than 1,400 drone and ballistic missile. One of the videos I really like always to rethink about it when I saw that video. There is like these children were playing football in Jazan while a patriot was engaging with one of the Houthis ballistic missile. For Saudi Arabia, I think Saudi Arabia will not second guess anything related to national security. I think it has the resources, it has the capacity to defend itself. And I don't think it's a matter for Saudi Arabia to even negotiate about the national security. What the Saudi is doing by mediating between all Yemeni parties, Houthis included, is to offer the peace that or the platform for peace that Yemenis can reach it, but without the Yemeni. I don't want to say compromises because the government of Yemen or most of the anti-Houthi campaign are offering all the time, but they need to find that solution because I don't think there is any military solution for this.
Did this work with the Houthis? These concessions, these compromises, did it work? Did it bring something? Like, yeah, like
the military solution didn't bring it as well. So it is equal. So if we have to choose, well, the best of the worst solutions, of course we would go for the political and the hard way, because the military way is very easy. You can just attack and get your benefits. But I just wanted also to raise this. The Yemeni problem is always political. Economy is important, social is important, humanitarian is important, development is important. But Yemeni conflict started by a coup, and the obstacles that stopped the political process after 2011. It's all related to each other. When we read the list of the sanctions against the people who are like did the obstacle to the Yemeni political process, and this all saga, this all conflicts is the result of that coup and what comes after. So should we just wait for the Houthis to come to the table? I don't think that's going to happen, because even the Houthis have their own problem together, and the anti-Houthi campaign as well, including the government, which is the bigger part of it. We remember a lot of stuff happened between the government of Yemen now shape, which is the PLC, but at the same time they have their own problems, they have their own challenges. So prioritizing services to people is, for me, is more important than compromises and peace, because peace will take a long time. Even the roadmap, if anyone have saw it, or maybe the leaked at least issue of it, it needs at least 2-3 years. During these 2-3 years, people don't have water, don't have electricity, right? So I think this is the priority, in my opinion. And if we just try to do the solution for the conflict, we have to always remember that the services and the priorities is people. Once that happens between the political parties and the whole other government of Yemen or anti-Houthi campaign, Houthis will follow up, because if once you got a better example in 80% 80 to 85% automatically Houthis will be under a big pressure, and they are already under big pressure. 9 years without salaries. If there is no expat transfer of money and economical support, I think they would even eat the Houthis, because I don't see any country could hold itself as Yemenis did by not receiving salaries for 10 years. So
Thank you,
at
but
least this is what
saying that. But basically, now I have to move to Dr. Jeehan. And do you think I have this conversation with you 4 months ago before the FTO? Do you think it does work? It's working? And also, which is like another layer of the question, do you think that the government can survive supplying services for the people? And what is the international, what kind with the FTO, with this, I would say, restrictions, the international intervention should be?
Well, I'm just trying to think about our conversation for months. What did I actually say then? But I mean, in terms of the FTO, it will definitely have an impact, and it will unfold as as time pass. I'm really not in a position. Maybe Mansour is in a better position to reflect on the impact on the FTO in itself. But it's a signal. It's a signal outside of Yemen to how to deal with Yemen. In terms of the private sector, how they look at Yemen, it's the signaling impact of the FTO, and that's I'm sure Mansour could reflect on in the country itself, but then it's the signaling for those who wants to work in Yemen. We have IFC and others will actually look into these things, because nobody wants to be also in a limbo when it comes to dealing with Yemen. If there is issues, any sanctions, although they usually follow the UN sanctions, but it's the signaling impact is difficult. But I will totally actually support what Emad was saying, that it's very important to focus on institutions and building systems. And this is not for today, not for the Yemen today. It's also for tomorrow. This will help the delivering services to the people, but also be part of the recovery going forward. If the institution continue to crumble, that will have a very costly recovery later on, and will have an impact on social cohesion. So something that it's very important to maybe to shift more the agenda from the humanitarian focus into more of a development focus in Yemen. It's very much needed. There is the World Bank and others are working in the development space, but that development space and also humanitarian space keep shrinking though with the funding. We see a reduction in ODA for many donor countries. So all of this needs to be taken into consideration in looking at how the government will be able to deliver to the people, given that it's a government with no revenues. They cannot export oil and gas, and they don't have the revenues as they used to from customs and others. And so where will the support come from? And I think just to build on the point that Badr actually mentioned, I might respectfully disagree with you that Yemen problem is a political problem. Yemen problem is an economic problem, and that started before the coup. The economic grievances in Yemen has been there for a very long time. Yemenis did not enjoy the peace dividend the way they should have. And even afterward, there has not been a good example of those peace dividends that they could look at and say, okay, this is how we want Yemen to look like. And there are examples in Yemen itself. And I think this is where Yemen has been failed in the recent history, in the current, as we speak, because there was no balance. Economically, there was no balance. As a Yemeni, where I'm gonna go in Yemen to have a better life, because people actually will move. Mobility of Yemenis are very mobile, and they could move around if they find opportunities for jobs, education, health. They will move around. It's their country, and they will be able to move. But the problem in Yemen is there is a political problem. I'm not saying there isn't, but there is an economic problem. And there has not been a balance of support in terms of the economy. So maybe.
Yeah. So yeah, if you will look at the problem from my point of view, I think it's a multi-tier problem. We cannot say it's only political or only economic at this, but I will move the question that you invited to Mr. Mansour, which is the FTO. Does it work or not? And this would also remind me of something like before the FTO, it's 1 year ago, the central bank in Ireland imposed restrictions on the entities that still work under the Houthis control area. And this move had a huge impact on the Houthis. And even some protests went out supporting these restrictions against the Houthis. Then at the blink of a night, the leadership, the BLC, decided to stop this. What are the challenges that you are facing as a central bank? And I remember your position on that and how you said everybody was up and suddenly the political level said, no, we cannot go ahead with that. Then came the FTO. What kind of challenges do you face when you run monetary policy in such situation, in such country?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hamzah. First, I wanted to respond to the question that Dr. Jeehan asked me to respond. Actually, as I said, the FTO is targeting Houthi, not Yemen. Then we need to work in the government side, including central bank. We need to work how we can direct this FTO gas to the Houthis. A lot of works that the government should to do. There is a chance, there is opportunity for the government to increase also the revenues. Now, there is most of the goods, only the exception only for the food and medicine that could go to the Hodeidah, and the rest of the good that the Houthi used to get customs and tax from it, it will enter Yemen through the government seaport or land port. That means the government can get this money, and it will also, reduce the Houthi chance to collect money from the Yemenis. Your questions, what's the challenge? The challenge now, I think we faced during the last few years a lot of challenge because of the Houthi behavior. For example, the Houthi issues a law that prohibiting the interest, which is the main business for the banks. That means the banks are suffering before the FTO. And moving from the Houthi areas, it's helping banks to reactivate their business and their work and to recontact with the correspondent banks. Banks cannot work without a good relation with the correspondent banks. And as a Houthi, designated as a trust group, regional and internationally, they will not trust any things coming from the Houthi areas. With the FTOs, it will help central bank to implement a monetary policy that helps all Yemenis. I will just respond to the Dr. Jeehan. There is no two central banks. There is only one central bank, and there is a branches kidnapping from the trust group, cutting from any. There is no any relation with the international financial systems. There is opportunity. Other opportunity now. As I said, the bank is suffering from dealing with the correspondent banks, especially with the dollar correspondent banks. This is increasing the cost of the imports, including foods. We import wheat from Australia, from Ukraine, from the United States, and this is in US dollars. Banks need to have more than one correspondent bank to transfer this US dollar to the exporters, because they have to go because the main resource for the foreign currency coming from the Saudi Arabia, because we have a huge community workers there in the Saudi Arabia, remittances coming to the Yemen. When we have more than one correspondent bank, it added a cost, which by the end it goes to the price of the food. Now there is a talk and there is a dealing. Just last week, we had a meeting with the bank associations after the banks themselves move the bank association from Sana'a to Eden. Now the banks start to interact with other banking association in the region. The bank now, they have their own representative. There is a talk now with other third-party U.S. monetary company, which is one of the famous companies in DC. This will do the monitoring for the Yemeni banks. That means that correspondent banks, they will have more trust now in the Yemeni banks, because Yemeni banks also subjective to the supervision from the central banks and also monitoring from the trusted third party. There is a chance the Yemeni banks will recontact with the dollar correspondent banks. I mean, FTO has huge impact negatively, but there is opportunity. The Central Bank of Yemen and the government should to work hard and to coordinate with our partner in the region and also with international partners, including Treasury.
Thank you so much for this clarification. I think it's important that banks can connect with the banks in the region and become, like, I would say, a legal bank, other than we have seen the last 8 years, and which lead to the growth and establishment of many money laundering networks inside and outside Yemen, through which they have shipped, of course, weapons, drugs, and other things, not only to Yemen, but also to the region. And it's a threat for everybody, to the Gulf countries and everybody. Before I open the floor, I would like to stress on the idea that you can ask directly to one of the speakers, or you can have an open question that any of them will tackle. Okay? Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody, for giving us this very informative and educational insight to what's happening in Yemen. My name is Emad. I'm representative of the Central International Council in the United States. And I think Yemen is both North and South Yemen. They are really people are suffering, and the situation really is very dire and very conflicting. And my question is to the panel, to what extent do you see the effectiveness of the PLC? This is the Presidential Leadership Council, with 8 members of different agendas and different views on how to move on. Is that going to impact on the future of the country, on the peace process that we're talking about, on dealing with the Houthis? Is there any kind of, is there anything like unified or common ground you can say that would unify these forces against the Houthis? So this is really, I know it's a big question, but I want to hear your insight on that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You want to take it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll make a shot on it. But since you are the representative of the STC here in Washington, you are very much involved in the thought about and thinking about the political situation in Yemen. So it is the PLC is now the leading political structure in the country. Definitely, it has many shortcomings. People, the performance is, not as much as expected from the people. But let's not forget that the moment the PLC came to the stage, we had the economic crisis with the attacks on the oil revenues. So we have been through, and then we had this back to the conflict, the Houthis dragging the country to a major conflict, and a crisis after another. Is there a chance for the PLC to better perform? I'm sure everybody in the PLC is working towards that, and so many challenges, different agendas on certain issues. Very true, and but the only thing the main issues that you're united in is the need to counter the Houthis. Everybody is feeling threatened by the Houthis. This is one major issue, the need to there should be some kind of support for the government from the PLC. We have seen that it should be one front to tackle this. How that will happen is beyond my league. I cannot talk about it anymore.
Yeah, but Fatima?
Thank you all. Thanks for this wonderful panel and information. I want to talk about the SWIFT code issue. So the Houthis were able to successfully negotiate or circumvent Yemen's government sanctions back in 2024 through a UN agreement. And that sort of like removed the SWIFT code restrictions on it. But then luckily they are reimposed right now by the FTO designation. And contrary to Badr, what Badr was saying, and I hope he doesn't get upset with me, but Saudi played a really negative role only because they were threatened by the Houthis. So the Houthis successfully managed to use escalation as a way to gain more economic leverage. And they've been even able to use escalation again to get a ceasefire with the United States. Most of the FTO, most of the Yemen's pressure was in order to negotiate successfully with the Houthis and get them to concede and lift the economic restrictions through their embargo on exporting oil in Yemen. And my question is through this FTO pressure, through these economic sanctions that are happening, do you see the Houthis moving to negotiate on lifting the sanctions or their own embargo on Yemen's government in order to be able to export its oil? Do they want any kind of revenue back from that? Does anyone know if there has been any kind of successful impact from the FTO designation, given the fact that it had restricted the SWIFT code issue and access on it?
So this question goes to, I think, to both of them, to Badr and Mansour. I'll start with Badr. So the question is directly: did the Saudis have been involved or have been facilitating things that will help the government to export oil again? And do you think this will work or not? And also the question is also to Mansour about the SWIFT code. Does it work? Does it work when it comes to oil thing, like limitation of the oil imports by the Houthis, and because they have been playing around to ship some oils in small boats to the port on Hodeidah and others, especially after the Israeli airstrikes. So I'll start with Badr, then I will go to Mansour.
I don't know if I heard rightly or not, but I think I've said that, and I'm always saying this. I don't think Saudi Arabia will even negotiate on its national security. It will not talk to the Houthis to prevent their attacks. If the Houthis attack, Saudi will have the whole resources, capacity to defend itself, and it did it, and it will do it if they need. So the Yemeni peace solution and the mediation between all Yemenis has nothing to do with the Saudi national security, because they are two different subjects, whether we like to believe it or not. And what we saw as 1,400 ballistic missile and drone is, I think, a big indicator that Saudi will never watch Houthis doing this. And if you remember, in November 2021, there were a small shift to the strategy of the coalition led by Saudi, and they were targeting directly so many Houthi stores and Houthi military equipment and locations directly after any attacks to Saudi Arabia. That's what led to the United Nations truce 2022. And we all know that Houthis are always motivated by the military pressure, if I could say. So I would love that in this panel that anyone would represent the Houthi point of view, and I would like to just to be saying this, even for Houthis, they have interest and they are like people. They are not aliens. They are Yemenis. They are from Yemen. I'm sure that they have interest. They want to achieve. If they achieved it by military solution, we will have a problem. But if they didn't see any way to achieve this military solution, I think they would go to the political table, and it will be the only table. And we saw it during Stockholm. We saw it so many times. So this is what I want to say in terms of the Saudi conditions for Yemen to benefit of the oil. I think Saudi produces, I think 10 million barrel a day. I don't think it will focus
No.
to.
No, but the question was different. Like how?
I don't know. Maybe I got it wrong.
The question was different, which is whether the Syria would help the government of Yemen in exporting oil because they are in a crisis. But since you answered the first part of the question, this answered what is the stance on like international, I would say, national security issue. I will take the answer from Mansour about the SWIFT code with the oil imports, especially
the SWIFT code. Just to clarify this point, the SWIFT code that central bank tried to cut it last year, it's just the final step to influence the bank or to enforce the bank to move their headquarters to Eden. It was one of the tools that the central bank used to enforce the bank to move. Now, after the FTO, the bank themselves, they move their SWIFT from Sana'a to Eden, and they are linked with the central bank with a SWIFT scope. I mean, nothing to do with the export oil, because after FTO, even the roadmap will be different. It is more difficult now to pay the Houthi even single dollars. The Houthi or any institution managed by the Houthis. It's totally different. And actually, personally, I think the Houthi will not help to have any settlement. We lie in the Houthi. We lie in the stupidity of the Houthis.
Small follow-up question. Small follow-up question. You have seen the President Trump unexpected announcement of the halt of the airstrike. Do you think we can see an FTO this way?
Let me tell you what happening 2 weeks ago. We had a meeting, all the banks, all the Yemeni banks, and the Treasury, and the assistant security of the Treasury was there. And one of the bank manager asked that there is a ceasefire, and we hope this will also facilitate our relation and to solve the FTO. He directly go him, there is nothing to do, and he said, we are in contact with White House, and there is nothing to say. There is no any agreement. It's just the Houthi stop attack American interest, and we stopped pumping them. Move the Houthi from FTO is not easy. It's need a lot of efforts from the Houthi themselves. The Houthi should to change his behavior, his mentality, his everything. And I think so the Houthi is willing and ready to do this thing. What's happening in Syria is totally different. We can say with a new regime in Syria what they did. They go to negotiate with Israel. They do many things. They also protect the military and all. There is a lot of steps that have been done from the new regime in Syria to move them from sanctions. But in the Houthi mentality, Houthi conservative, and he will not help for any settlement. And it's not easy. It's not easy to move Houthi from the FTO.
I'll take.
And that's what we get it during our discussion with the Treasury. We saw they are gonna to be more conservative against the Houthi economically. Yeah, they stopped the Air Force attack, but economically and sanction, maybe there is a lot of sanction in the way.
Thank you so much, Mansour, for clarifying that, because people think that because nobody understands what the administration is doing right now. But I will take the question from Rob, then from Mohammed, then we can answer them at once here.
Thank you very much. Rob Mogilnicki, one of the scholars here working on political economy issues. Thanks for bringing together this great group and for a really comprehensive and informative conversation. Two questions directed toward Jeehan and Emad based on some of your comments, but welcome others to weigh in too. I'll start with the more optimistic one. You mentioned, Jeehan, missed economic opportunities that were frustrating for you. So if we envision a more optimistic scenario where there is some progress on the political front, conflict stabilization, what would you see as the most kind of feasible and promising economic opportunities that could be translated from missed opportunities to ones that are seized upon? The second point or question for Emad, in your opening remarks, you talked about the worsening of the economic situation contributing to an escalation of tensions or new flaring of the conflict in different ways. Could you maybe paint us a picture of how that might play out? I mean, what would that actually look like? What particular economic situations do you see as being most likely to leading to that scenario, and what would be the outcome that you might expect or be concerned about? Thank you.
Mohammed.
My question is simple. What's next?
Okay, so do you start answering?
Okay, perfect. So thank you. I'm just gonna share with you what maybe some of you saw the latest World Bank report on in Yemen economy. And they run 3 different scenarios, and I could go through them all, but focus on your point on if things improve. So according to the bank, and I know that the UNDP also runs different scenarios, but for this one, it says under the lasting peace and recovery scenario, GDP could recover by 2035. By 2040, Yemen's real GDP could be 50% higher than the status quo. So that's just to give you where, if situations improved in Yemen, there will be a progress, and hopefully will be a quick progress in the country. In terms of missing opportunities, I mean, FDI, hopefully if there is peace, there will be more FDI. There will be the diaspora, the Yemeni diaspora themselves will be able to contribute more to the development of their own country. But then you're looking at the human capital, and I'm always worried about the human capital wealth that Yemenis are losing right now, which that will help to position Yemen going forward. Yemen is a big market too. Market in regionally or else, and that is by itself could be a very prosperous way. I mean, the problem is, going back maybe to how Hamzah started the conversation, is that Yemen has been always looked at from a crisis lens or security lens, maybe political lens, but we didn't look at Yemen from the economic lens. What Yemen has to offer if there is a stable Yemen, and not only regionally, and we saw what happened with the Red Sea. A stable Yemen is gonna, it contributes to global stability too. So that's something that needs to be really taken into consideration.
Thank you, Rob. And I would like to make a small comments from the questions raised. Well, first I will start with the FTO. FTO is a huge mechanism. It's a huge tool, but as long as the Houthis are, having their hands over population and a piece of land, they will always be able to make revenues and resources. So in order to, and the end game for the FTO when it started was to weaken the Houthis. So it needs some kind of comprehensive approach. And this is what is lacking. We don't have a policy. The US does not have a policy towards Yemen other than stopping the threat coming from Yemen. And likewise, we don't see a comprehensive approach towards Yemen. Yemen does not offer easy and beautiful options. it's quite difficult, but we have seen how, leaving Yemen aside, and I mean, not tackling the main issues in Yemen, how it impacts the security, the interests and security of the regional actors and international actors. So we need to work on a comprehensive approach. Jeehan mentioned the economy. We talk about the political, but also there are so many other areas to mention. And what are the main issues, how the escalation would, I mean, the economic situation driving escalation. Actually, I mean, and even before, for quite some time, the economic war has been ongoing. The Houthis, the duplication of the currency, and then, but the major event was the attacks on oil terminals. So, and stopping the oil exports. So this is, again, I mean, the economic situation in Houthi-controlled areas after the destruction of oil tanks and the Hodeidah port and Sana'a airport. I mean, this is a crisis. Still, people did not see the impact of that. It's growing, and people will feel it by the time. But how the Houthis will react? Usually, they will export these conflicts. Likewise, the economic situation in government-controlled areas is making everybody unable to deal with the needs of the people. People are, like Badr said, services are not provided for the people. I mean, it's Yemen cannot wait for the peace to come. There are so many demands that we need to handle at this very moment. And if that does not happen at this very moment, this will complicate the situation. And what is feasible and possible now, if these conditions are not met, if these things are not performed, will be impossible in like 3 years when we shake hands and sit on the same table.
Before I move to the okay. So I was asking if anybody needs a question.
Sorry, I think I didn't answer your question.
Of course, nobody was gonna answer.
No,
I'm used to it.
No. My idea is that they have to answer to the closing remarks. What is next?
Maybe I'll just take it quickly, just to build on what my answer on the economic side. I mean, I think we as Yemenis, as Yemen, as regional actors, as international actors, we really need to understand that there is the attention span for donors and others are very short, and there's always a distraction. There's always something happening elsewhere. So the attention for Yemen will be fading if there hasn't been a good story there in Yemen, a positive story that comes out of Yemen. And there is a donor fatigue, and the attention, we see it. There is, progress in Syria. Hopefully there will be progress in Sudan and elsewhere in the world that will divert attention elsewhere from Yemen. So what's next is we need a good story coming from a positive one, coming from Yemen to bring back the attention to Yemen and hopefully to the people of Yemen.
And what is next, Mohammed, is quite a difficult question. I mean, but hopefully we see something either in peace or any other way. I mean, the main issue is that Yemenis will come together and establish some kind of a peace process, balanced peace for the people.
Okay, because we're moving to the closing remarks for 1 minute for each of the speakers.
Can I just make a short observation after my friend asks his question?
Sure. Shukran. Two quick questions. One for Badr. You mentioned that it's Yemenis that have to agree amongst themselves to resolve this and to move towards peace. But if I may ask, what are the concrete steps that Saudis has taken to encourage this or facilitate this pathway to reconciliation, if you will? And my second question is to this side of the room. Is basically, I feel like we're ignoring the elephant in the room. The Houthis are hyper sectarian. So really deep grievances. We talk about reconciliation, we talk about peace, but the thing is that if you talk to any Yemeni, they'll tell you, we cannot live with the Houthis. The fact is, they believe in the divine right to rule. They've killed thousands of our people. It is not political, it is not economic, it's about the blood, the rivers of blood that have been spilled, and the fact that we cannot live with them. This has been said by the president of the PLC himself and the ministers of the government when they repeatedly say in their speeches, this is a sectarian group. This is the imamate. We're not going to go back to the 1960s. It is either us or them. So there's that rhetoric as well. And yet we talk about peace. We talk about that it's going to be easy, basically extend the olive branch, and we can't. So
What's next? Yes.
Just an observation, and we might not have time to deal with it. It seems to me that Western analysts who look at Yemen and look at the conflict there often tend to treat the Houthis as supermen. They like whatever is done against the Houthis, it's like it won't work, and whatever the Houthis do is like amazing and always works, and they're brilliant like statesmen and they're crafty in the way they do their tactics. It's a strange sort of perception that Western journalists and analysts have in talking about the Houthis. And they also treat the Houthis as invisible men. In other words, when they talk about human rights, it's always focused on what other people are doing to violate the human rights of Yemenis. And they're never talking about what the Houthis have done to violate the human rights of Yemenis. So I would encourage people when they're thinking about this problem in Yemen, think about what the vulnerabilities are of the Houthis and focus on them and focus on the ways you can change the perceptions about the Houthis in the Western media.
Thank you. The last question, then I will move to that.
Yeah, a short and easy question. When Donald Trump became president, some Yemenis people, especially good friends of mine, how it would help solve Houthi issue in Yemen. Looking back now, what do you think about this issue?
Yeah, this is for me. I'll answer it. So the first question to be answered, you want to go ahead, Badr?
To be honest, I forgot the question, but I will try.
Steps by Saudi Arabia to facilitate reconciliation in Yemen.
Yeah, I think since 2021, Saudi announced the Saudi Initiative for Yemen, and I think it opens all doors that end up with this type of solution. We saw Saudi ambassador in Sana'a. We saw a delegation from Sana'a with the Saudi defense minister. They held a meeting in Riyadh. They held talks to the whole Yemeni parties, and that was all under the United Nations track and under umbrella. And that's what led to the roadmap. And I think Saudi will continue pushing and supporting this path and this path only, at least for what I know now. I don't remember the second question, so if you can just remind me.
Oh, yeah. So it was generally about his second part of the question was speaking about politics and economy, not speaking about ideology, which is also a challenge for Saudi Arabia. Because we know there are like this ideology is the Iran ideology that support to any allied Saudi Arabia taking over Mecca. It's not just like a threat that is.
Yeah, I think I had something related to the blood and imamate and stuff like that. I've been questioning maybe 3 or 4 United Nations special envoys to Yemen about the social fabric, and no one cares, by the way. And yes, I think, in my opinion, this is a very important thing, and it should have a very major priority during any peace process, because I can see both parties have this. I can't compare the same, because what the Houthis are doing is terrible, but I can't say the other party has nothing to do against it. So the whole social fabric is I think need a better solutions to heal. It's not only between Houthis and the anti-Houthis, it's even between North and South. I never heard some words and some new narratives like what I heard last few years, and I think this is all because is a result of the collapsing of the social fabric. I think Yemenis are strong enough to sit down as they sit in the national dialogue. It took them 1,000 years. I hope it won't take them another few hundred years to do another national dialogue. And this is one of the suggested
You have to
political.
heard, but time. I will give the floor to the speakers to give 1 minute closing remark and answer the question, what is next? I will start with Mansour. What is next when it comes to Yemen?
Thank you so much. The next, it depends how the Houthi behavior will be. But I think we are not exceptions. We are part of the region, and we are seeing the movement in the region. We're seeing what's happening in Lebanon, in Syria, in Kurdish also, and Palestinian, and we are not exception. The Yemeni are hard workers. They are smart enough. Just when the time is coming, you will see how is the development and how is the improvement will be in Yemen.
Thank you so much. Jeehan?
Maybe 2 points. One, I totally agree on the social fabric. I think it's the worst thing that happened. The outcome of this war is damage to the social fabric. I think it's easier to rebuild, buildings and factories, but building that social fabric would really need a national unity around it to agree on how to rebuild that national fabric. In terms of what's next, I think it's very important to empower the Yemeni people. I think Yemen has been underutilized for many decades, not even now. And seeing Yemen as a part of a solution of a regional growth will change the perspective and the way the region and the world is dealing with Yemen. And I think that's something that maybe the government should adopt a narrative, having a very clear communication strategy with the rest of the world, and what is Yemen and what Yemen could offer, and what could be potential maybe solutions for what's happening in the country. But at the end of the day, maybe many Yemenis would share this, that continue to put pressure on the Yemeni people, whether through increasing, in terms of poverty, in terms of their health, and others, might be one way to get the Yemenis to accept whatever will be put on the table. And I think that is not a good solution for Yemen or for the region going forward.
Thank you, Jeehan. Badr?
Just wanted to remind myself and the others, when Houthis were in a national dialogue, they were talking about sharing a very good concept of the country because they were not empowered. When they are not empowered and they don't have it and control it, they would, I think, in my opinion, work with what they have in hand, whether sharing the power and the wealth or the new shape or the concept of the country. My last remark is just a small thank to whole Yemen and Yemenis. I really respect them. I like them. They offered me a job for my life. I'm very grateful, and I really believe in Yemeni talents, culture, the generosity, the wide generosity of all Yemenis, and I believe that they can always achieve what they want once they concentrate on it. So I really wish them all the best, and thank you again.
Thank you, Badr. Emad, I started with you. I end with you.
Yeah, I mean, so many points to this, but I'll try to keep it brief. First, Hisham, you mentioned the very nature of the Houthis. I have a question, like I'm thinking aloud, why all the artists, the journalists, the thinkers of left Houthi-controlled areas and left the country to other regions or inside the country? Because it's the very issue of coexistence. Unless the Houthis accept the others and give up these ideas or ideology of subduing Yemen, other fellow Yemenis, the conflict will be ongoing. The Yemenis will not accept this. I mean, it has been 10 years and the Yemenis have been fighting with the support of the regional partners, but they have been fighting and resisting without even support. So this is likely the scenario. William, thank you for mentioning that. It's very true that the Western media and the think tankers always present the Houthis as undefeatable supermen. the people who stood for the coups, but they forget about their atrocities and the ideology against the Yemeni people. This is a mission that is needed to be done by the Yemeni people. It's not a question to be answered. It's a call from William for everybody here to work on this. And I really thank you on that. And regarding what is next is, I mean, it's the Yemeni coups. Either we get a safe, stable Yemeni, or it will impact the whole region and the world.
Thank you, Emad, and thank you, everybody. And I have to close with my small words that I will say. First of all, Houthis are supported by Iran, but are there many problems? Yemenis started fighting the Houthis even before the intervention of the Saudis, even before the United States airstrike, and they will keep fighting them. Because you cannot live with somebody who doesn't believe that you're a human being. You're just a servant. Either we accept, and I said it before, either we accept that we live as non-human with supremacists, or we defeat the Houthis, and it will not work either ways. I would thank the speakers too much for being with us today, and for your attendance, and for your wonderful questions and interactions. And I want to thank the Institute for bringing the Yemenis, and for having me for a month, and for this opportunity to interact with Yemen, to at least try to reflect the Yemeni voices. And I hope that discussions in Yemen will keep going, because Yemen is a country and has more than 30 million people that should be listened to. And this crisis should end as soon as possible. Thank you so much.